We are, and this is when I say good evening, everybody, and welcome to On the Sports Lines for it's the last one of June. My, how time flies. With me is Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Rabbi.
Hey, what's going on?
We have a lot to talk about tonight, and it's finally fully sports-related. Hallelujah. I mean, the world's events do need to at least go up first, but we can finally talk about a full sports show, and we're going to start with baseball. Hey, guys, remember last week when we were talking about the players and owners fighting and everybody would end up coming together? No, we didn't. Okay, but this week they, again, did not agree to a deal, and finally we will be shutting up and playing because the where is going to be all around America. It is in centralized divisions. The when will be spring training July 1st with games starting on July 23rd and 24th. And now let's talk about the how we got there point. Jay, what are your first thoughts on baseball coming back for 2020?
Well, let me preface this by saying that when the day comes that I'm actually whiling away 3+ hours on my couch watching Garrett Cole strike out the side and Gleyber Torres crush one into the upper deck, I will appreciate baseball being back. But my air quotes around back are deliberate because while individual games will provide an escape and hopefully more joy than sorrows in terms of wins versus losses for us New York baseball fans, the season will be one big honking asterisk as far as I'm concerned, guys. 60 games is not a season. 81 games is the least amount of games that should have been played this year because that would be at least 50% of a normal season, which is something I think players and fans could somewhat relate to. For me, 100 games would have been the minimum to qualify this outlier as even close to a real season. And honestly, guys, the cloud that is going to hang over these 60 games is going to stay there. You know, MLB and the Players Association really screwed the pooch because as I've ranted both on this show and on social media, neither party could get out of their own way and thus couldn't see the forest for the trees. All right, now here ended the rant, okay? So I'm going to tell you what I do and what I don't like about what's going to actually roll out.
Please do.
I do like the universal DH. I know this is no surprise to either of you or anyone who both follows the show or works on the show with me. I know that our buddies and show founder Stephen D. Ferguson will hate it. He and I have been debating American League versus National League DH versus pitchers hitting for 18 years. And it's been fun, but at least for now, I can look into this camera and go, ha, I win. I'm not a fan of this runner on second base to start extra innings, but I'm glad there won't be any ties and that this nonsense will only be for the regular season. I do like how they're handling the makeup of the rosters in terms of gradually coming down from 30 to 26 players active at all times. I like the way they're employing a 30-man taxi squad since there's not going to be any minor leagues to draw from. I do like how they're breaking out the schedule, honestly. You know, you'll play 10 games against the teams in your own, the other 4 teams in your division. That's 40 games, 3 and 2 game series. I like that they're going to play 20 games against, the corresponding interleague division, East versus East for us here in New York. And that at least 6 of those games will be against, your team's interleague rivals. So we'll get to see plenty of Yankees Mets down here. I mean, obviously, guys, the biggest concern is COVID-19 in the states that are seeing increases as they started to do their reopenings, especially Florida and Arizona. To me, that's concerning. I mean, granted, it's warm enough, guys, that each team can do spring training 2.0 in their actual home city. But traveling to play the Marlins and or the Diamondbacks would give me pause. Look, I know that MLB is going to do everything they can on and off the field. I mean, the protocols they have in place for testing and quarantining are well thought out. But, guys, all it takes is for one team to get hit with multiple players, staff, et al., testing positive. This attempt at a season could very well be over potentially before it even really gets going. To borrow from Mr. Jason Stark, there are a zillion ways this season will be different from any that preceded it. It's going to be interesting to say the least, guys.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, the one day I am looking forward to is the universal DH because you got teams like the Dodgers and the Cubs and the Mets even who can now slide an extra bat in and don't have to let their pitchers.
Yoenis Cespedes, anybody?
Yeah, Cespedes suddenly is now valuable. Or Dominic Smith if you're the Mets, because now you get to put the bats in the lineup. Now, it's disappointing that the Mets pitching staff can't hit. I know Jacob deGrom loves the bat, but for the Universal DH, it should be good. I'm not a fan of the second base to start out on a second. I'm like this. If you want to go to a gimmick, go to like a 1 or 2 round home run derby, okay? Like
no.
Hey,
look, like that you're playing a skills contest to win a game. Come on, Ed.
Hey, look, we see it in hockey when you see shootouts in the regular season.
Not the same thing.
And soccer. So I'm like, hey, look, if you want that much of a gimmick, why don't you just go for a home run derby, or at least let the runner start on first base, so it's not so much as like a blue single and the game is over just like that. But yeah, the biggest concern is COVID-19. You think about teams like the Marlins and the Tampa Bay Rays and the Diamondbacks.
About Tampa Bay,
you know, and it's being directly affected by the surges in cases in Arizona and Florida, respecting even the California teams. You think about the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Angels, how that may affect them. And in Toronto, you understand Canada has a 14-day quarantine. So how will the Blue Jays get around that? So there's a lot of question marks that are still in the air as far as teams being able to play, health and safety protocols, as well. But you look at it's like 60. Like they have plenty of chances to maybe get more than 60 games in, but they squandered it. So like the labor ugliness that led to this is going to hang over. It's really going to hang over this season, and pretty much into 2021. I know, regardless if they play a full season or not, we don't know where we're going to be with this with COVID-19, as far as how we had in the pandemic. Comes the fall, even into the winter months, but it's the fact that we're starting a season with a lot of labor unrest is kind of unsettling. Like when the games start, you're not going to think about it, but it's going to be like a real cloud in the air. Like I remember 1994, like going into the All-Star break, and there was a looming cloud that there was a strike hanging over the head of the season, and it ended up losing the second half of the entire 1994 season. And you think about it, that pretty much cost Montreal a baseball team in the long run. It almost cost Seattle a baseball team in the long run also.
Yeah, the canceling the World Series that year hung over the sport for a long time. Long time.
You think about it, when they came back in 1995, they played 115 games because it started the season late. And the attendance was down across the board. I mean, it took like the home run race and the Yankee Mariner wild card series that was memorable. Mm-hmm. So but it took a long time for baseball to finally kind of get back in the good graces of its fans and to be back as the American pastime. Mm-hmm. Now you're going into this. Well, the season pretty much was marred by billionaire owners and millionaire players all like spatting in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, it's a bad look on baseball all around.
Yep.
Yeah, there's one thing. First of all, hate the universal DH. We can get into this argument all day, but I think honestly it's the right move at this time, considering this is a sprint. This is not a marathon. So, okay, fine. Still rather see pitchers hit. Like the strategy. We've argued about this a million times. It doesn't need to be rehashed. That's number one. Number two, it's a 60-game season. I know they're playing the same amount of games. The asterisk is fucking huge. I mean, the first team, and yes, you mentioned COVID, but the first team that gets injured, they're done. They're done for the rest of the season. If the Yankees have the same injury bugs that they've had pretty much over the last 2 years, they are a deep team, but they're not going to be in great shape, especially with the pitching staff that's still iffy. Maybe Severino comes back. We'll talk about that on future shows. But this is a big clusterfuck for MLB. And Anthony, you mentioned COVID. There are labor talks that are coming up. These two sides have not made any good faith with each other whatsoever. I'm not looking. I mean, I'm glad to see baseball back. I think the Mets-Yankees games, the Mets-Phillies games, the Yankees-Rays games. We'll see Yankees-Sox 10 times, and each game will be over 4.5 hours, and we'll still love it. But there is a lot of uncertainty in the air. I think the season will ultimately come through, but the fact that we're not getting an expanded playoffs, which was talked about, meaning, again, only 10 out of 30 teams of a 60-game season make the playoffs, which is complete lunacy with me. How are you going to deal with tiebreakers because there's no common opponents, most likely, because they'll become – I like, again, the centralized West against West, Central against Central, East against East. It's going to make for some very awkward playoff matchups when they see each other for the first time in 2020. There's a lot of things to not like about this, but if the alternative is no baseball at all, I guess this is fine, but hopefully for God, 2021 comes and we'll have a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I must say I love waking up early in the morning to watch the Korean baseball organization, the KBO. I'm kind of happy to have Major League Baseball back, but yeah, expanding playoff field is a missed opportunity, especially
it's a huge missed opportunity.
In a short season where an oblique muscle that's like a 4 to 6 week injury could be a season ender, but under the circumstances. So yes, I really think that was a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah. All right, guys. You want more? Yeah.
One of many missed opportunities.
If we talked about how much baseball has screwed up over the last few years, we'd be here till 11 for this one topic. However, we're going to move on to basketball and the meat of our show tonight. So we've planned this topic for 3 weeks, and we've had to delay. But tonight we'll finally get to it. Woo! This would be around the time that I was going to say the NBA Finals would start, but now this would be around the time that the NBA Draft would start because it's June 25th, not June 4th. But basketball is coming back in about a month, and the postseason will be pretty much right away outside of the 8-game regular season. By the way, that schedule comes out tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. But tonight we're going to talk about the greatest postseason games of all time. And as I've heard from Jay, it's postseason, not playoffs, because apparently playoffs and finals are two totally different things. I don't understand it either. We're just going to move on. So we're going to each pick 2 games, and we're going to pick an honorable mention. So I'm very excited to disagree with all of your picks. Anthony, you are first up tonight. What do you got for pick number 1?
Yeah, what I did is the NBA Draft was actually scheduled for tonight.
That's right.
So that was the irony to that. You know what? My first pick is it's pretty much recent. You gotta go back 4 years and almost 3 days to the day. Game 7, Cleveland Cavaliers, Golden State Warriors, 2016 NBA Finals. You saw literally the greatest finals comeback. And going into that series, this is how close the series was contested. Going into Game 7, both teams scored a total of 610 points. And that's totally combined. I mean, each. The Cavs came back from a 3-1 series deficit. We all know what happened. Draymond Green getting suspended for Game 5. LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, each going for 40 points to push the series to the 6th game. Game 6, the Cavaliers led wire to wire in blowout fashion. LeBron James, another 40 points, forcing a Game 7 on Father's Day. It's something about Father's Day that's pretty synonymous with great NBA
Finals.
games. Yep. And obviously in Game 7, they replayed this game on NBA TV just the other night. So it was great to watch it from start to finish from the beginning. Game 7 was really close. They had 20 lead changes, 11 ties going back and forth. But Golden State, when you watch that game, they led by 7 at halftime. They had so many chances to kind of blow this game away. But a pivotal stretch that kind of gets overlooked was J.R. Smith scoring 8 points in the third quarter. Now, granted, J.R. Smith is known for a lot of things, something else these days that have to do with the finals. But his 8 points kind of kept the Cavs hanging around at a time where Draymond Green seems unstoppable. He scored 32 points including 6 3-pointers on a night where the Splash Brothers couldn't find a basket.
Green was the only one to
half.
shoot 50% from the field that night for the Warriors.
And normally on a night when normally you want Draymond Green taking threes, but when he's making them, the Warriors tend to be virtually unstoppable because you're focused on everyone else. But then let's fast forward to the fact that the Cavs outscored the Warriors 51-40 in the second half of this game and held the Golden State Warriors to 13 points over on the fourth quarter, shut them out in the final 4 minutes and 39 seconds. Obviously, we know what happened there. The block, the chase down block LeBron James on Andre Iguodala that led to Kyrie Irving hitting the go-ahead three-pointer over Steph Curry that gave him a 92-89 lead. Now, one of the most overlooked sequences in that game was Kevin Love's defense on Steph Curry in the ensuing possession, how he was able to stay in front of Steph Curry and force him into a miscontested three-point opportunity. LeBron James hits some free throws, kind of ice and seals it. The Warriors, obviously coming off a 73-win regular season, needed one more win to kind of put themselves in that argument as the greatest NBA team of all time, up there with the 96, 72-win Bulls team led by Michael Jordan. And the Cavs coming back from 3-1, one of the biggest upsets in NBA Finals history, but also the greatest Finals comeback. You look at LeBron James, and I don't know where this narrative of him not being clutch came from, because he led both teams in points, rebounds, and assists, which has never been done before in the finals. He was unanimous MVP, became only the 5th player to win MVP in 3 NBA Finals appearances. Cleveland winning the first championship for the city in 52 years. Definitely one of the all-time great NBA Finals games, and it capped off an NBA Finals that saw pretty much 4 blowouts out of the 7 games. 4 of the games were blowouts. It started out with the Warriors handling the Cavs 2 quick blowouts. The Cavs took game 3, and the Warriors won game 4 on the road, and we know what happened after that. And there was a lot of off the court stuff too. Remember Steph Curry's wife and Klay Thompson's
saying
dad
that the NBA was basically fixed after Game 6 when Curry threw the mouthpiece.
Taking digs at LeBron James, calling him a crybaby, and LeBron James got the last laugh in a memorable finals matchup.
I got to tell you, the game itself that you're referencing is easily the best game of that series, but the entire series. I mean, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of like the backdrop and the overall story that surrounds a singular game or a singular performance. And you have LeBron still trying to shake the naysayers, who cut him down every time people say he's the greatest of all time, going up against a Goliath of a team. I mean, on paper, even having LeBron, Golden State was projected. I mean, everybody look at it. So they have LeBron. There's no way this Warriors team does not win this title. It may go 7 games. It may go down to the last minute of Game 7. But there's no way Golden State does not walk away with a ring. So, and especially once Cleveland went down 3-1, you're like, okay, yeah, there's no way. LeBron gave it his best, but there's no way. And then to watch him take that team and that series on his shoulders and literally and I said this on our show at that time, through nothing but the sheer force of his will to lead them all the way back from 3-1 down to win that series. Say whatever you want about Michael Jordan, and he is arguably the greatest of all time. Jordan never had to do that. So right then and there, to me, LeBron crushed all the naysayers in that, by doing what he did, leading them back from 3-1 down in that series. So, I mean, great game, but a greatest of all time series for so many reasons, and I think it will stay that way.
Yeah, you also talk about LeBron James, but how about Kyrie Irving? I mean,
I leave all the Kyrie Irving talk to you. And you know I don't talk about
Positive Kyrie Irving talk. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying about like in this series, Kyrie Irving played like a guy who was ready to step up and kind of play well. You saw in Game 5, he scored 40 points along with LeBron James scoring 41, and then Game 7, obviously, the final 4 minutes and 39 seconds, you saw a Golden State Warriors team that was so used to blowing teams out and games being over by the beginning of the fourth quarter, panicked. They literally played like a team that panicked. Meanwhile, you saw Kyrie Irving, who with the poise of a superstar, get a mismatch with Steph Curry guarding him and take a contested 3-pointer with that confidence to knock it down. But also, Kevin Love, like I said, Cleveland's big three, when it needed the most, made big plays to kind of get Cleveland their first championship. And Kevin Love's defense, he struggled in that series, and to stay in front of Steph Curry, and Steph Curry's not an easy guy to guard, we all seen that, and to force a contested 3-pointer that missed, and you see Steph Curry hit 3-pointers from 70, 80 feet away. That's one of the most overlooked defensive plays in recent memory.
Yeah, it is. And some fun facts about this game. 44.5 million people watched this game at its peak. It was the highest rated NBA game ever shown on ABC. And this is a great pick, Anthony, because it is probably the most influential game, except for one, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes, of the 2010s. You mentioned that final 4 minutes when the Warriors didn't score. The most tense defense that I've ever seen in any NBA Finals game came between the 450 mark and the 150 and the 159 mark of that game, where neither team scored. I felt like we were at 89 for about, 25, 30 minutes. It was kind of intense. The 4 years that the Warriors and Cavs played each other in the NBA Finals, we had a 4-game series in 18, a 5-game series in 17, a 6-game series in 15, and a 7-game series in 16. This was the rivalry of that time, which seems so goddamn long ago.
I know, right?
Yes, yeah. It feels like 100 years ago. This is why the Warriors will always have a small asterisk next to their name, and they'll always be the reason why they ended up getting Kevin Durant, because Joe Lacob, after that postseason, says will be very, very aggressive. And, of course, that's how 73-win teams do it, baby. They get very, very aggressive. This game is so important to the history of the league because LeBron never wins a title in Cleveland without this game. 15, he almost won that series by himself. 16, he had the whole crew. It puts a damper on the Warriors dynasty because, again, KD joins in 17 and they win in 17 and 18. I think they would have done it either way, but it loses the 4 in a row and it just puts the Warriors as great and not dynasty-like. So we talked about, and I would have picked this game, by the way, from you, Anthony, if you didn't pick it first. You'd be glad that I let you take it. Jay, you have pick number 2.
Yeah, and I'm going with a game that, I'm going to go a little way back here. Celtics Bulls, 1986 Eastern Conference Round 1, Game 2, April 20th, 1986. Celtics 135, Bulls 131 in double overtime. That's the game, and you saw it in big, bold type during, the Last Dance. Michael Jordan sets an NBA playoff record that still lives to this day, dropping 63 on the Celtics at only age 23 and only his second season in the association. He went 22 of 41 from the floor, 19 of 21 from the line. 42 of his 63 points were scored against Dennis Johnson and Danny Ainge, who are a pair of good to very good, in the case of Johnson, backcourt defenders. Jordan attempted a field goal against 7 different defenders, including 5 Hall of Famers. You guys care to guess the only player who guarded Jordan and kept him off the scoreboard?
Parrish? No,
nope.
That's not
Anthony, one guess.
McHale?
Kevin McHale?
No. Get ready, guys. Current Mavs coach Rick Carlisle.
What? Wow.
To 0 for 1. the Celtics literally threw everybody at him. Only 3 of his 41 shots went uncontested. And here's another thing. You guys have to remember, this is a Celtics team that went 67-15, had the best record in the NBA, had the best front court in the NBA in Parrish, Bird, and McHale. Like I said, 5 future Hall of Famers. But what's interesting to me about this game, and it's the part that like most people don't talk about, even those of us who watched it live, Jordan basically abandoned his defensive responsibilities in that game. He often leaked off his man to help out elsewhere, and the Celtics constantly beat this strategy to get open looks throughout the game. Jordan's primary defensive assignments, guys he guarded primarily, they shot 12 of 19 against him. 11 of those shots were uncontested. They hit 8 of them. In all, the Celtics scored 31 points when Jordan was the primary defender in the game, most allowed by any player on either side. And this is a guy who, down the road, becomes all-NBA defense. So it makes you wonder if this is the game that kind of stuck in his head. Maybe I should play a little defense down the road. The fact that he was able to do this against this team after only playing 18 regular season games, to me, made this even more remarkable. I mean, the man made shots from everywhere, most of them off the dribble, 12 of 22 on pull-ups, 8 of 14 on drives, 2 of 5 on other shots. Guys, the only shot he didn't make or even attempt was from three-point range. It's a much different game in 1986. What stands out for me, and it's a game that will always stick in my memory because I watched it growing up. So I saw it actually happened. Larry Bird's post-game quote was pretty much says it all. Quote, "I didn't think anyone was capable of doing what Michael has done to us. He's the most exciting player today. I think it's just God disguised as Michael Jordan."
That's such a great pick. The fireworks went off and everybody was loving it.
Yeah.
Amazing job.
Right?
Jordan lit up the Boston Garden that night, guys. I mean, that team when you consider the players who were on the other side, that he was essentially a one-man gang, though ironically enough, Orlando Woolridge did drop 24 for the Bulls in that game. Jordan actually had 6 assists, but the fact that he literally was a one-man gang, and he basically took this team, and not one but 2 overtimes it took the Celtics to finally put them away in this game. I mean, legend born.
It's 2 things. Number one, this is a game that shows you don't want to play golf with Michael Jordan the day before and piss him off the way Danny Ainge did. Number 2, I was 3 at this time, so I was a little bit young, but Michael Jordan scoring 63 points, and the most majority of his points come on Dennis Johnson, who's face it, it's not a defensive slouch, but when you have, it looked like everything that the Celtics threw at him was just not working, and it's just still one of the more memorable performances. But also when you look at it, it's also a microcosm of how great Michael Jordan was, but how really bad the Bulls team he was on early in his career really was. I mean, he played 18 games. He was on a minutes restriction. And we all watched The Last Dance. It looked like a team that did not try to make the playoffs, but the bottom half of the Eastern Conference was so bad. It was like they got in just by default. It's just because they couldn't get any worse. Like it was a 30-win team. I mean, they weren't trying to make the playoffs.
30 and 52.
30 and 52, and they got in, and their reward is arguably one of the great regular season teams of all time.
Oh yeah,
the 1986 Boston Celtics.
82 and 18 final record.
Yeah, and you think about this, in game 1, Michael Jordan went for 40, and in game 2, he just went off even further. But when you score 63 points, normally you should win that game.
Yeah.
But you should win that game. But like I said, like the Bulls teams weren't that great, and against those great Celtics teams, he wasn't going to beat them by himself. Even though he almost came close on one Sunday afternoon in April. What's funny is that the Boston Celtics fans, especially in the Boston Garden, have seen so many great moments. I think even they were kind of shocked and amazed at what they were seeing from an opposing player, no less. Yeah. You know what? It and one thing to it put Nike on the map because you
Yeah,
saw the Jordan Air Force
did.
Ones that he was playing in. And now that if you watch The Last Dance, you can't think about the highlights of that game and not hear LL Cool J in the background, in the back of your mind. As Jordan is basically lighting up, no pun intended, because you hear the fireworks in the background, lighting up a great Boston Celtics team. And the fact that, by the way, he hit 2 free throws to send the game into an additional overtime. So, I mean, we saw an early glimpse of Michael Jordan scoring prowess, but also the clutch gene that everybody kind of brings up with Michael Jordan. It's just unfortunate that, great players don't always beat great teams single-handedly.
Nope.
And this is one of those cases.
Okay, so I have a little bit of trivia for you two.
Okay.
This player scored 16.2 points per game as a starter for the Bulls most of the season, but because of Jordan coming back, he only played 5 minutes off of the Chicago bench. Who is it? This is a tough one. All right.
That
you
is
have no chance of getting this, guys.
probably not.
It's the Iceman, George Gervin. He played 1 season for the Chicago Bulls, every other season for the Spurs. Also, a Bull in this game, Charles Oakley, had a double-double of 10 points and 14 rebounds.
Right.
I love this pick because I know, Jay, you had an intertwined pick of people who went off for great performances. And this is Michael Jordan's real coming out party.
Yeah.
However, it's a 30-52 team. It is a team that didn't – you'd think it would make headway for Game 3. They got killed in Game 1, got killed in Game 3. So, and Boston, again, this was a speed bump in Boston stagecoach to an NBA championship.
In the overall scheme of the series, it was a speed bump, but it was one hell of a speed bump.
It was one hell of a speed bump, but unfortunately, it was a very, very – it was probably the highlight of that entire postseason because that Celtics team – was so dominant and really showed that Larry Bird was a definite great player in his time.
Well, hey, Rabbi, I mean, of all 3 of my picks, this is the only one where the star player's singular performance came in a loss.
Yeah. But again, I think the best player on the court that night overall was Bird because, as you said, Jordan didn't really have any defensive qualities at that point and really gave up on his defensive assignments. Almost like Trae Young. But a lot better. All right. My first pick, and probably the reason why I wanted to do this in the first place, is an interesting pick. If we did this show on June 4th, when we were supposed to originally do this show, this would have been 20 years to the day of this game. And it's the 7th game of the Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and the Blazers. This is Phil Jackson's first season as LA's head coach. The Lakers won 67 games during this regular season, but the Blazers gave them a tough test. The Lakers, I believe, were up 3-1 in this series. Blazers win Game 5 in LA, and obviously they win back in Game 6 in what I think was the original Rose Garden. And now we come to Game 7. 7 o'clock, Sunday night. The quintessential NBC Game 7 that you see on Sundays. Blazers team had a prime Rasheed Wallace, Scottie Pippen, a little past his prime post-Bulls, and Steve Smith, who combined for 60 of the Blazers' 84. The Blazers were up 15 in this game with 10:28 remaining, and then the Lakers come back with a 29-9 run. 2 Bryant Shaw threes start this up. Shaq was double-teamed almost all night in this game and ended up with only a 19-10 for what Shaq has done in the postseason, especially in that Lakers run of 2000 to 2002. That's nothing. Blazers missed 12 consecutive shots due to the tenacious defense of a 21-year-old Dame, Kobe Bryant. Those 15 points and that 15-point lead deteriorated in 10 minutes of game time. Shaq hits a jump hook to give the Lakers their first lead. Blazers tie the game right back. And then comes one of Kobe Bryant's best shots of entire career. A lot of people think Kobe Bryant was kind of made as a next-level superstar in that 76ers series when he basically dominated in Game 4. This was a pretty good one. So 2 free throws give the Lakers the go-ahead points, and then an inside-out dribble that freezes defensive god Scottie Pippen for a long-range jumper, and then the piece de resistance of what is the painting of the Lakers dynasty, a Kobe alley-oop to Shaq with under 45 seconds to go. The loudest I've ever heard a stadium, obviously on TV because I'm not there in LA. And bam, you have one of the largest fourth quarter Game 7 comebacks that you'll ever see. One of the things that I like to do with these picks that is one of the reasons why I mentioned my Cavs and Warriors is the trajectory of this series. By the way, here comes fireworks for my pick too. Must be a really good pick. Lakers don't win this game. It's Phil Jackson's real first bad. It would be a failure for Phil Jackson, and who knows what happens in 2001 and 2002. Maybe he comes back, maybe he doesn't. And this is the high point for the Blazers really from 90 to 2020. Remember, they made the Western Conference Finals the year before, got pretty much destroyed in 4 by the Spurs in that straight shortened season. The Blazers never really got anywhere near this plateau again, where they probably were close. They were the second best team in the NBA that year. Unfortunately, they're in the same conference as the Lakers. And what do we hear from the Blazers the next 10 years after? Jail Blazers. It really became a watershed moment in the NBA.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's I'm sorry, Jay.
Never talk.
Let me, I got to tell you, everybody talks about how, there were 2 different Lakers teams. You had the one where Kobe was playing Robin to Shaq's Batman, and the ones after Shaq left where Kobe was the alpha. A lot of people talk about how if the 2 of them could have managed to coexist when they were in their primes, Shaq in his prime at age 27, Kobe just really starting, on the cusp of his at age 21. If they could have figured out how to actually make their big brother, little brother relationship work, you wonder how many more titles they could have won together with that team. I mean, that team was it mostly both of the 2 of them? Yeah, they averaged 46 points a game in that series alone. Only 2 guys in double figures and no one above 11. But they were so dominant as, at their respective positions at that point. I mean, even then you could see, that Kobe had that will, that fire, that killer instinct. I mean, at that point, and he was just really about to explode. And Shaq was just an unstoppable force. When Rasheed Wallace is your marquee guy, as good as the Blazers were that year, and look, granted, yes, they took the Lakers to 7 games that, in that conference finals. But I got to tell you, I was surprised that the series even went that far, because on paper, that Laker team, if they had their stuff together, should have knocked the Blazers out in 5.
01 and 02 were a much better team, especially the 01 team, which went 15-1 that postseason. Wonder where that one was, Jay. But this is obviously a team that was just growing up, and that was really their first big pressure situation. Yeah. Blazers really had nothing to lose in that game because they were they were not expected to win. So, yes, Rasheed is definitely not going to not be the star of your title team, but as a team, kind of like the 2004 Pistons, they almost gelled and won the title.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that 2000 Lakers team, and one of the most overlooked series was the Sacramento Kings pushed them to the full 5 games, and obviously the Kings became more of their divisional rival. I mean, their conference rivals as the years went on. Obviously, 2002. But going back to Portland, you think about the team they had. They had Rasheed Wallace, they had Scottie Pippen, they had Steve Smith, Bonzi Wells, Arvydas Sabonis. They had a good squad. But you look at how dominant Shaq and Kobe was that year. And even they had Glenn Rice that came as a third scorer. Horace Grant was a big part of that team also. But a lot of credit need to be given to Phil Jackson. You got to think about it. This is essentially the same team that Dale Harris couldn't get over the hump, and Phil Jackson comes in, and one of the most overlooked qualities of Phil Jackson's coaching was his ability to mend egos. And obviously, Shaq, being the guy and wanting to be the man, and that was so talked about when he left Orlando, because it was Shaq's ego and the fact that he felt like Orlando was kind of leaning more towards Anthony Hardaway. He should have been the alpha male. Mm-hmm. He goes to Los Angeles. He's the alpha male, but now he has young, emerging Kobe Bryant, who we saw superstardom in the 1998 All-Star game in Madison Square Garden. We saw it that it was going to happen soon enough. But you talk about the initial breakup after the 2004 finals, and you do wonder if they were able to coexist a little longer, how many more NBA championships they could have won or at least competed for. Mm-hmm. Even the year they didn't win, when the three-peat came to an end in 2003, Shaq missed half a season, and there was reports of him being out of shape. Kobe Bryant really stepped up and kept the Lakers afloat until they were able to turn around late in the season and kind of grab the third seed up from being one of the lowest seeds at the All-Star break. But that's that. The Trailblazers, there are two moments in their franchise history that are going to haunt them. It's obviously blowing a big lead in Game 6 against Chicago in 1992 and blowing this big lead against the Lakers when they had a golden opportunity to move on to what honestly a lot of people felt was a winnable finals matchup against Indiana. Or, of course, the Knicks were an old banged up team as well that could have made the finals that year. But like Anthony, I said, that loss stayed with Portland fans for a long time.
Anthony, I want to say one thing before we move on. You mentioned the season where Kobe helped out an injured Shaq. Shaq had one of the greatest lines I've ever seen. I got injured off of company time. I'm going to heal on company time. That just shows Shaq was one of those players who didn't exactly – I don't mean not try hard, but Shaq was definitely one of those players who could have even been better than he already was. All right. Yep. We move on now. And this might be a deja vu moment, but we're going to hear Bulls Celtics again, Anthony.
Yeah, we're talking Celtics Bulls, but we're going to fast forward 23 years to 2009. Now, granted, this is one of the wildest, wackiest first-round playoff matchups you could have possibly came up with.
Possibly the wackiest, by the way.
Yeah, and Game 6 of this series definitely kind of took the cake. You think about the defending champion Boston Celtics, who won 62 games. It was in peak form. However, they did lose Kevin Garnett prior to the end of the regular season, and he did not come back for the playoffs. So that was one caveat from the previous show when they went on to win the NBA championship. The young Bulls who finished the season at 500, led by the second young phenom Derrick Rose, and entered the playoffs at number 17, gave the defending champs all they could handle in this 7-game series. They shocked them in Game 1 in overtime with Derrick Rose virtually won the game by himself. You think about this series, there were 4 overtime games, a total of 7 overtime periods. The lone lopsided game in this series was a 21-point win by the Celtics on the road in Game 3. Now, go to Game 6. Game 6 had everything. You had unsung heroes like John Salmon scoring 35 points, including 16 in the first quarter. Brad Miller, now that's a name you haven't heard in a long time, scored 23 points in his own right. You had a near fist fight towards the end of the first quarter between Rajon Rondo and Kirk Hinrich when they got tangled up and Rondo shoved them into the scores table, only for Hinrich to shove him back. And Vinny Del Negro, who was the Bulls coach at the time, happened to get in between to keep his player from getting kicked out of the game. The Bulls had double-digit leads twice in the series, only for the Celtics to come back. There were 17 ties, 21 lead changes. Ray Allen went up for a career-high 51 points, 18 of 32 shooting, and hit 9 3-pointers, including one that tied the game to force a third overtime, hit one over Cook Heinrich. The watershed moment of this game was in the third overtime, and Joakim Noah stealing the ball from Paul Pierce and scoring on a breakaway dunk and getting fouled by Pierce simultaneously, which led to Paul Pierce fouling out of the game. And even with all that, the Bulls still almost lost this game because Cook Heinrich misses a wide open layup. Derrick Rose misses 2 free throws, and the Celtics had a chance to steal this game and move on to the second round. But Rajon Rondo's game-winning shot layup was blocked by Derrick Rose at the last minute. This is just one of the wild series. Because it's a first-round matchup, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle as far as playoff memories. But this was one of the great first-round playoff matchups that you couldn't possibly ask for. Like, this young Bulls team with Derrick Rose, with Salmons, with Joakim Noah, with Ben Gordon. Remember, he was a key component to that team also. They were all game. And normally, when you got these 1-8-2-7 matchups, they're not really appealing. But, I mean, to tell you what, this Bulls team owed more respect in a 7-game loss, and they almost won Game 7 had it not been for a late 10-0 Celtics run to kind of put the game away. And one of the last images is Paul Pierce wiping the sweat off his brow as a sigh of relief when that Game 7 finally came to a close, because they realized how close they was to being upset by the eventually future MVP and Derrick Rose. But when you look at this series, you think about how good the Bulls would have been had Derrick Rose not gotten injured 2 years later in the first round, and you looked at the talent that they had. It's a lot of what ifs as far as what could have possibly happened to this Bulls team. But then you look at the Celtics on the other end, they lost to Orlando in the next round. They get back to the finals. And you look at the talent that they had for that 5-year stretch to only come away with the one championship. Kind of feels like they kind of underachieved.
Little empty.
When it was so close. Yeah, granted, they're the biggest shit talkers you'll possibly find for a one-year wonder. But you think about, they could have won more than the one championship that they won in 2008. But this is just one of those really great, wacky playoff matchups that when we air it, I just sit down and watch. I mean, from start to finish, this series is really good.
Yeah, it's funny, Anthony, you talk about how crazy this series was. The fact that the Celtics got taken to 7 games is impressive as it is, but the fact that, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 7 games were no more than 3-point differentials in terms of winner versus loser. There was only 2 blowouts in this series, Game 3 and the clincher. Game 3, Boston 107-86, and then the clincher where they blew out the Bulls at home. The Celtics were 109-99. So other than those 2 blowouts, this was probably a more hotly contested series than Boston expected going in. I mean, you talk about the guys on the Bulls. Ben Gordon, of all people, led this team in scoring in that series. He averaged over 24 points a game. But
only 12 in this one, though.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Gordon, Rose, and Salmons all had to play 44 minutes per game in that series for the Bulls to even stay in this series just shows you, the difference overall between the 2 teams. You were seeing Derrick Rose, Anthony, you put it right there. I mean, Derrick Rose, oh my God, what could have been had this kid been able to stay healthy? The fact that they were able to take a team that had Ray Allen and Paul Pierce. I mean, hell, Rajon Rondo averaged 19 points, 9 rebounds, and almost 12 assists in this series. So, one of a more highly competitive series than you would have expected. And it made for if you're a fan, it was an enjoyable series to watch because 5 of the 7 games came down to the end. But, it's just for the Bulls, the only way you can say it is, what could have been.
Yeah, here's one other thing that's kind of funny about this. The 2008 Celtics, we'll get to that, and I'll give you some facts about this game in a second. The 2008 Celtics played 26 playoff games out of a possible 28. Remember, they went 7 the year before against Atlanta in round 1, which would have been one of the biggest shocks in NBA history. They go 7 with a younger LeBron James team. I know they were coming off the finals, and then they do 6 versus Detroit and 6 versus LA. So the fact that that Boston team was tired, maybe one of the reasons why KG got injured in 2009, but that Bulls series is amazing. I didn't remember this game until Anthony brought it up, and holy jeez, Ray Allen, 51 points. Now, given 18 of 32 shooting, I mean, let's hold that off for a second. And we mentioned Brad Miller for a second, who obviously I remember more as a king as a Bull. Anybody want to guess his plus minus?
In this series?
In this game.
In this game. Wow.
I'm going to cheat. I'm already there.
Okay, you shut up then. Anthony, you want to guess his plus minus?
I would say plus 20, 25.
26.
Oh, it was close.
26.
It was close.
Which is insane because the next highest was plus 11. And I didn't realize when I'm looking at the box score, I see a Stephon Marbury sighting for the Celtics going 7 minutes and 58 seconds with a -3. I don't know why that ends up being a little stain on NBA history. Starbury never makes anything more exciting. But yeah, Anthony, this is actually a really good pick. Doesn't really move the needle in the history of the NBA, but oh my goodness, the 3 overtime and 4 overtime games are some of the most exciting things when we get to spring.
Yeah, you mentioned that the Celtics the previous year went 7 games to an Atlanta Hawks team that was very underwhelming. It was something about this Celtics team, though 2008, 2009, but for whatever reason, they could not win road games in the playoffs. Literally, during the championship run, they only won really 2 games on the road, and it was the clincher in Detroit and the great come from behind
the
win.
Game 4 game, right?
In Game 4 against the Lakers. So those are the only 2 road playoff games they won in that series. In that season. And then the following year, they were a little better on the road, but again, they're pushed to the brink against a young, up-and-coming team. And it is, like I said, it was like what was it about the first round that the Celtics just weren't able to kind of put the foot on the throats of the opponents. And then you think about this series, and even Game 1. I mean, did you think that Derrick Rose would explode in his very first playoff game, would go off and kind of like land a haymaker that kind of caught the Celtics by surprise? It's like, hey, you know what? Maybe this is not going to be a cakewalk after all. And from that point on, Game 3 was the only really lopsided game, and the Bulls shot under 40% in that game. But the rest of the series was just, it was tit for tat. And even in Game 7, it was a 10-point win, but the Celtics needed a late scoring run to actually put that game away because Chicago had cut the lead to 5 with under 3 minutes of play in that game. So, like I say, it was just a great series from start to finish.
And one thing before we can
remember, you wrote one thing you remember about the Celtics of that era. They were very good, and they were championship contenders, but they weren't a team that was going to blow you out.
No.
More often than not. Because more often than not, that series was a microcosm of that era. They had to grind out and wins as opposed to run away with wins. So it's no surprise that as they got into the playoffs, they had to do that more and more.
Yeah, the Celtics and the Lakers had some grind-out series in 2008, 2010. Before we move on, I know this has nothing to do with this game, but one of my favorite NBA playoff calls in history, game, I think it's 4 of Celtics-Cavs in 2008, when Kevin Harlan says, after a big LeBron James dunk, LeBron James with no regard for human life. It just shows Boston had a lot of people do things against them, but they got the job done in their playoff series. Mm-hmm. All right, Jay, pick number 2 and the oldest pick on the board, if I'm not mistaken.
It is indeed. And you talk about a game that moved the needle. This is one.
It's definitely dead.
Lakers, Sixers, 1980 NBA Finals, Game 6, May 15 of that year. Lakers 123, Sixers 107. I'll set the stage for you because, again, everything for my picks is about the backdrop. Team captain, league MVP Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is injured. 20-year-old rookie point guard Magic Johnson steps in to play center. He wound up playing all 5 positions in that game, scored 42 points along with 15 rebounds and 7 assists to lead the Lakers to a series-clinching win over the Sixers in Philly. Now, you got to remember, Magic comes into the league fresh off that national championship win over Larry Bird. And he goes direct to La La Land. I mean, talk about a number 1 pick going to play for a marquee franchise. And Magic was unfazed by all of it all season long. But he took it to the next level in the finals. When he boarded the flight from LA to Philly, he took Kareem's usual seat in the first row, winked at Coach Paul Westhead, and announced to the rest of the team, "Never fear, EJ is here." And then he very much brought his A++ game with him. The Lakers jump out to a 7-point lead with Johnson playing center, forward, and guard. 3-point play, skyhooks, homage to the captain himself and all of the other shots in his arsenal. And he's got 13 points in the first quarter alone. Game's tied at 60 at the half, and the Lakers were up 93-83 after 3. And just when the Philly faithful thought it was all over, the Sixers, led by the incomparable Dr. J, Julius Erving.
Oh, that's who that is? I didn't know that. Is that what jersey you're wearing?
Come on, guys.
I know who that is. Jesus.
The Sixers went on a run in the final 5 minutes to pull within 2, 103-101. Now, we all know basketball is a game of runs, and the Lakers had just one more in them. They go on a 20-6 spurt to close out the game. Final score, 123-107. Magic has 11 of the 20. Jamal Wilkes, who was an underrated player on the Lakers teams of that era, very much so, caught in the shadow of Magic and Kareem. He also went off on Philly to the tune of 37 points, 25 in the second half, including a dunk with 50 seconds left to give LA a 12-point lead. Even without Kareem, the Lakers out-rebounded Philly 52-36. And despite the Sixers having 5 guys in double figures led by Irving's 27, when it's all said and done, the Lakers are champs. Magic is finals MVP. And this game goes into the history books as one of the most iconic moments in NBA history. Move the needle enough for you there, Rabbi?
It does.
Here's a tidbit. I was just looking this up. This is that was the first NBA Finals to use the 3-point line.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm correct, I just looked that up.
3-point line was implemented in 1980.
No one, by the way, hit a 3-pointer in this game, so it wasn't really that much of a help.
Nope.
Yeah, I don't think anyone used it. But you think about Magic Johnson, 42 points, 14 of 14 from the free throw line, which is very important. That tells you the kids out there to practice their free throws. You never know. But, you think about this, like Magic Johnson was already coming off a national championship. And to step into the storied Los Angeles Lakers with already Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the team, and to play, and not just to start at center, and pretty much play all 5 positions, which tells you how versatile Magic Johnson was throughout his career, which I feel like is more of a closer comparison with LeBron James than Michael Jordan. Like I said, I would say LeBron was more Magic than LeBron because of LeBron was more Magic than Michael because of his ability to play all 5 positions. But Magic Johnson, you think about this is like he just embodied the Los Angeles Lakers from the iconic smile to this is the beginning of the Showtime Lakers pretty much. Yeah. Even when they went on to win the championships, it became like after they lost to the Celtics, Pat Riley went to Magic and said, for us to win, you have to be the guy. Basically, he had to take the mantle soon enough from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and for them to win, to become more successful throughout the 80s, and it led to 4 more championships. Yep. But this was definitely the coming out party for young Irving Magic Johnson. Of course, if you didn't know about his national championship at Michigan State, this was kind of like, hey, here I am.
I think everybody knew about that national championship in Michigan State. It's one of the most iconic college basketball games ever. Now, Magic Johnson's line in the NBA Finals, holy jeez, 42, 15, and 7.
Yep.
You from a rookie. Oh, my God. And thank you for mentioning Jamal Wilkes' performances. He was actually the high shooter in that game with 30 shots. One thing that interests me, and by the way, one thing, Jay, that is really interesting, this is the most important game in this series and one of the most iconic, biggest blowout of the series. Every other game was 10 points or less.
Yeah, and that's one of the more surprising things about that series is that every game there was, other than game 1 was a 7-point swing. Game 2 was a 3-point swing. Game 3, which the Lakers won in Philly, was a 10-point win. Game 4 was a 3-point win. Game 5 was a 5-pointer. Yeah, and everybody talks about. Here's the thing about me with Kareem, and the reason why I kind of started my whole spiel with talking about him. Kareem was still in his prime. He
won the MVP that year.
Right, exactly. Before he went down, he was averaging 33 and almost 14 rebounds in that series. So to say that he was the focal point, the fulcrum, everything revolved around him was saying something.
Okay.
Because this is no joke. But I mean, Rabbi, Magic Johnson's overall line for that series, 21.5, 11.2, and 8.7 assists. I mean, wow.
One of the biggest mysteries to me is, I just looked this up. Obviously, 1979-80 was Larry and Magic's first rookie season. Magic's numbers, 18, 7, and 7. Larry Bird's numbers, 21, 3, 21, 10, and 4. You know how, out of 66 people, how many voted for Magic Johnson for Rookie of the Year? 3. Bird got 63 votes and was actually fourth in the total MVP voting. So the fact that Magic Johnson got 3 votes.
Bias.
I guess I was an East Coast bias, even though the Lakers were about to go on one of the greatest runs in NBA history with the Celtics. How the hell does Magic Johnson, 3 years younger, get 60 less votes for Rookie of the Year?
I will tell you how. And
Lakers were a stacked team?
Lakers were a stacked team. You got to remember, in the regular season, option 1 was Kareem. Option 2 was Jamal Wilkes. Magic was number 3. Bird was option number 1 on that Celtics team as a rookie.
Again, though, the numbers kind of speak for themselves, which is one of the reasons why that's shocking to me. I'm learning so much today, and I didn't really thought I would. Okay, my second pick, and I kind of referenced it before, if it's not the most important game of the 2010s and maybe Warriors-Cavs is, this is pretty damn close. It's Spurs-Heat Game 6, 2013 NBA Finals. And I'm just going to skip everything and go to the waning moments of this game. With 2:09 remaining, the Heat pulled ahead 89-86, but the Spurs went on a run of themselves, spearheaded by Tony Parker, becoming the great point guard who he is. He should be in the Hall of Fame. He shot a step-back 3 and a reverse layup in consecutive possessions to put the Spurs ahead 91-89. Next possession, James loses the ball on the post, which eventually led to a pair of Manu Ginobili free throws after a Ray Allen intentional foul. We're at 93-89 now. James then does another turnover, something that completely gets forgotten about this game. Ginobili gets hit fouled by Allen. Ginobili only hits 1 of 2. It's 94-89. Best part, fans are leaving the Miami Arena. Fans are leaving the American Airlines Arena like this series is over. Yellow tape is on the floor. The Larry O'Brien trophy is on the floor, ready for the Spurs to hoist it up in a ceremony. LeBron James misses a three-pointer. Ball is kept in Heat possession. Wade and Allen tips the ball. Mike Miller gets the rebound, passes it to James. 2-point game, 20 seconds left. The Heat immediately foul Kawhi Leonard, who misses 1 of 2 free throws again. 1 possession game, 95-92. James was entrusted with the final shot, but missed a 26-foot jumper from beyond the arc. Bosh tips it over. Ray Allen, bang, tie game with 5 seconds remaining. Remember, this game goes to overtime Heat take their first lead with 1:40 left in overtime, and Danny Green, North Babylon's own, has a 3 blocked by Chris Bosh right in the last seconds. Heat win by 3. This is one of the greatest games in NBA history as players and commentators regard to it. LeBron James regards it as one of the greatest games in which he has ever taken part of. Dwayne Wade said after the game it will go down as one of the best games he's ever seen. And NBA legend Magic Johnson called it one of the 2 or 3 best games he had ever seen. And I think he's watched a lot of basketball. And it was the 2013 ESPY Award for Best Game. One thing, let's talk about the significance of this game to everything. The significance of this game is if the Spurs win the title, they will probably go back-to-back and win 2013 and 2014 and kind of cement the second part of their dynasty instead of just having this small championship in 2014 that they finally beat a tired Heat against. Mm-hmm. And number 2, LeBron James wins the title in 2012 against the Thunder. It is a shortened season, however, and the Thunder tremendously petered down in the finals. This is probably the most legit championship of LeBron James's reign. If you think that Draymond Green getting suspended for his nut kick in Game 5 tilted the series in the Cavs' favor.
I do.
And a lot of people do. And also, Greg Popovich leaves Tim Duncan on the bench. Spurs went small in those final minutes, and I believe when Pop is on his deathbed, bragging about everything that is coming on his life, pushing away a reporter that asked a stupid question before he or she dies, he'll regret this because not going big in those final moments led to those 2 3-pointers and virtually led to the Heat winning this series. And of course, Game 7, LeBron goes for a triple-double, cements his status as one of the greatest players in the NBA if he didn't already. This was a watershed moment for the NBA in 2013.
Yeah, you think about that Game 6, and I have to remind people all the time, like you brought up Draymond Green's nut kick, and I have to say, look, the Warriors had 3 chances to win a series, and let's not put Draymond Green in the important pantheon and say Karl Malone. I mean, look, they had a great Game 7, but come on, Draymond, the Warriors still could have won that series with Draymond Green in an Oakland A's game and managed to screw that up. In the case of the San Antonio Spurs, they lost this game in overtime and still managed to lose a Game 7 that was very winnable. Keep in mind, Tim Duncan missed a wide open layup that would have tied the game with under a minute and a half left in that game. But yeah, I mean, Ray Allen, Jesus Shuttlesworth, whatever you want to call him, he did. I mean, I know a lot of people say he saved LeBron James. Look, Ray Allen did what he does best. And that's knock down threes. I mean, I mentioned him early in the show. His performance against the Bulls is scoring 51 points. This was Ray Allen pretty much doing what he always does best. Whether it was Milwaukee, whether it was the Seattle Supersonics. We kind of forget that he played with the Sonics and led them to the playoffs with Rashawn Lewis for a couple of years in the mid-2000s before going to Boston. And obviously, how he ended up in Miami was the fact that he was kind of edged out of the picture by the Celtics. They didn't want to re-sign him. And to this day, the feud between Ray Allen and his former Celtic teammates, because he went to the Miami Heat, still kind of hangs over the shadow of those Celtic teams. But you think about that Game 6, and Tony Parker was one of the great playoff series and one of the great performances that just kind of lost in a win. And yeah, Greg Popovich leaving Tim Duncan on the bench. How big was that? Because they couldn't get a rebound that would have kind of iced the game.
Everything was tipped. Everything was tipped.
Yeah, the game tied 3. And then you think about how they had a chance to – it seemed like they just couldn't recover in that overtime. And then in Game 7, LeBron James went for a triple-double. But, yes, the Miami Heat fans kind of got you know what? They got a reputation for being bandwagon fans after that game where they left prematurely and they try to get back into the arena. But it's like, hey, look, once you leave the arena, that's it. You're not getting back in. But you think about this finals loss was actually a catalyst for the Spurs coming back in 2014 and winning the finals in convincing fashion against the Miami Heat. Now, granted, Dwayne Wade was banged up. Chris Bosh was 100%. So they did beat a banged up Miami Heat team. when push comes to shove. But you think about that finals loss, you forget that the series went 7 games, but Game 6 is definitely the game that everyone thinks about when they think about the 2013 finals.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it on the head, Rabbi. I mean, if not for Cavs Warriors, this is probably the marquee series, and this is the marquee game in that series. I mean, you just wonder. Duncan's 37 at this point. Ginobili's 36. Duncan got off to a great start in that game, and then just basically could not put the ball in the ocean in the third quarter. So you wonder if that had anything to do with Pop thinking, let's go small. Tim's just out of gas. You just wonder, because if you think about it, you look at there's so many chances, that San Antonio had to put this game away, and they just let Miami hang around, and the fact that they utterly collapsed in that fourth quarter, letting the Heat outscore them 30-20 to send the game into overtime. You got to wonder at that point. Like I said, was San Antonio just running out of gas? And yeah, LeBron didn't have one of his classic games like he did in the Warriors series, but again. He started out slow, 3 for 12 from the floor after the first 3, with Miami trailing by 10. And then, he picks it up in the fourth quarter like he's prone to doing. But, yeah, I mean, Anthony, you nailed it. There's always something about Ray Allen, no matter what jersey he's wearing. At some point in a playoff series, Ray Allen is going to be in the corner. He's going to catch the ball, have a wide open 3, and it doesn't matter who the announcer is. The only thing you're going to hear in your own head when that ball goes through the hoop is Mike Breen saying, bang, when that
all the time
down.
Yeah, and you think about Ray Allen, go back to his college days. I mean, he's had one of the quickest 3-point releases in league history. And it was like, can anybody recall a Ray Allen shot being blocked? Because I can't.
No, if you jump over, that'll probably be the only way that it happens.
Yeah, but one of the overlooked stats is LeBron James going off, I think, 17 in that fourth quarter and really kind of keeping Miami in that game because the rest of the Miami Heat really did not do anything in that fourth quarter. LeBron really kind of carried the team as far as he could, but yeah, he
went 8 for 14 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, he had the 2 late turnovers that could have really put the game away for San Antonio, but like the Manu Ginobili missed free throw. Maybe that would have made it a 6-point game, and who knows how Miami's possessions would have gone from that point on. So, like I said, a lot of things went Miami's favor, including, like I said, the lucky bounce of the ball. Chris Bosh getting out to Ray Allen, and Ray Allen having the wherewithal to step back behind.
Right, it could have easily been a 2.
Yeah, it could have easily been a 2, but having the wherewithal to at least look down for a split second to make sure he was behind the 3-point line and to get it off from that angle. Now, granted, the quarter 3 is the shortest 3-point distance, but it's also the toughest angle because you can always hit the backboard as well or shoot an elbow.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have you don't really have much margin for error. So to go all net, it was like, I mean, it's definitely one of the all-time great clutch shots in NBA history.
And let me tie this all in a bow before we get to our honorable mention. That Spurs dynasty, not necessarily dynasty, 2011 number 1 seed, but they lose to the Memphis Grizzlies in 6. Is still a big shocker. 2012, 2-0 lead to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They lose the next 4 games and lose that series. 2013, 2014, Kawhi Leonard basically takes over the team for the rest of time and wins the NBA championship. This is why the Spurs kept winning titles. I think their run has finally ended, but oh man, what a run it was from 1990.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Oh yeah.
All right, we all have honorable mentions. We're going to go a little bit quicker with this, and Anthony, you're going to start us off.
You know what? We're talking about big shots in the finals. I'm going to go with John Paxson winning Game 6 in the 1990
Bailouts. Bailout 3.
Yeah, we're talking about bailouts, and that what's the key thing about this game? There was two key stats. First off, Michael Jordan averaged 41 points a game in his NBA Finals series. He scored 55 in Game 4 of this series to win unanimous MVP. But you think about the play itself. Michael Jordan was literally a decoy. He got the inbound pass and passed it to Scottie Pippen almost immediately when he thought it was going to be a double team. Paul Westphal, who was the coach of the Suns at the time, basically told his team not to double team anybody, to play straight up man-to-man defense. And Scottie Pippen obviously got to Horace Grant. Now, granted, Horace Grant became a little bit of a punching bag because of the Last Dance documentary and him being the alleged leaker in the locker room. But Horace Grant had the wherewithal to recognize that Danny Ainge left his man all alone to kind of sneak up on him and pass the ball to a wide open John Paxson for 3. Now, you look at the Bulls' stats. Jordan had 33, Pippen had 23, B.J. Armstrong had 18. No other Bulls players scored in double figures. They scored 13 points, actually 12 points, the entire fourth quarter. That is actually a record for the fewest points by a team who won an NBA Finals game and clinched a championship. Michael Jordan scored 9 points, and the only 3 points he did not score in that entire fourth quarter was John Paxson's three-pointer. This is a game the Bulls actually was in control of for 3 quarters, but they squandered a lead, and the Suns took a 4-point lead. But what happened? Michael Jordan scores a layup. Dan Marley misses a 3-point opportunity that actually did not hit the rim. It led to a 24-second violation, and then it led to the John Paxson three-pointer. But you think about this has been kind of a culmination of a three-point. And what was probably one of the Bulls' toughest roads to the finals. You think about all the stuff that was going on with Michael Jordan, the gambling allegations, and the media circus behind that, going to Atlantic City in the middle of the Knicks series when they were down 2-9. It felt like when the Bulls won the championship, it was literally like kind of like more of a sigh of relief, more of like, oh, we did it. But it wasn't the same celebration as you saw in the first 2 championship runs. And obviously, we saw what happened. 7 months later, Jordan retires. The Bulls are able to get one more run out of that current team, but they lost to the Knicks the following year. But the John Paxson three-pointer is probably one of the more iconic shots in league history, especially if you're like me and like all of us, and you grew up watching the NBA on NBC, and that was such a hallmark of one of the montage during the opening, during the telecast. So, like this is this is my honorable mention as far as the significance of it. We saw the first 3-peat since those Celtic teams in the 1960s when they won 8 in a row. And also we saw the bookend of the Bulls' first 3-peat team before Michael Jordan kind of shocked the world and retired a few months later.
Yeah, I mean, this was a hell of a game period. I mean, you talk about Paxson's shot, and something that I didn't know until I started looking things up. That was the Bulls' 10th 3 of the game, and it was a finals record at that point. I mean, and Paxson got the cleanest look you're ever going to get at a 3-point shot, with the finals on the line. I mean, if you think about it, that's the thing. I mean, I think for a lot of people, I don't want to just say, put it under the heading of casual fans, but there's probably a lot of fans who that's the iconic moment. That's the picture postcard that sticks in their head. And you don't necessarily automatically remember that Jordan scored 40 or more in 4 straight games, including 55 in game 4. You don't think about just how close, that series was and how close Phoenix at the course of their own playoff run, how many times? I mean, they staved off elimination 5 times in that postseason. 3 times in the first round, a 7th game showdown with the Sonics in the Western Conference Finals, back when there was a professional basketball team in Seattle.
There was? Really?
Long time ago. What feels like a galaxy far, far away, or an alternate Earth, if you believe in the multiverse theory. And even the Knicks, took Chicago to the limit, to before they could even get to the finals. So both teams had to go through hell of a road to get there. It was a hell of a story. I mean, Charles Barkley against Michael Jordan, as the backdrop of that series, and overall, one of the best series, I think, in the initial three-peat for the Chicago Bulls. But yeah, I think, everybody probably, when you think of, iconic shots, you'll think of Jordan easing Byron Nelson out of the way to knock down that jumper. You'll think about Steve Kerr. But in terms of iconic shots in Bulls championship wins, Paxson's the one who started it all. And, I don't think he gets enough credit for what he did, but hell of a shot.
That's not a foul, by the way, on Byron Russell, Jay. I don't know what you're talking about here.
Last we were doing the last dance recap. I said it was not a foul.
You said yeek.
I agreed with Costas. I agreed with Costas. Michael's in there, but Russell was going that direction anyway.
That was such a great analogy that he made, but we talked about this before. 2 things about this game. Number 1, did you know Paxson actually had a first quarter buzzer beater in this game as well? Kind of a sign.
Yes, he did.
I forgot about that.
Kind of a sign for things to come in this game. Also, and I didn't realize this, and I completely forgot it from the documentary, Phoenix did not win a home game in this entire series. They actually went 2-1 in Chicago and lost games 1, 2, and 6 at home. That's a massive choke job. Not many people had home court advantage against a Michael Jordan Bulls team, and they blew it.
Yes.
But I think one of the things that really gave Jordan his motivation, and I don't know if we mentioned it, was the fact that Barkley was MVP in 1993. No one wins MVP against Michael Jordan in a healthy season.
Yeah, we talked about that when we were that series, that stretch of episodes, yeah.
And one more thing. You can't let someone go coast to coast with 38 seconds remaining, and that's kind of what set up the Paxton play. Yeah. Suns really did a lot of things wrong in this series. And
my God.
So many things wrong, and this could have easily been a championship for them.
Talk about the dictionary definition of shooting yourself in the foot, loading and doing it over and over and over throughout the course of that series. On paper, Phoenix was the team that had the best chance to knock off the Bulls. That team was stacked. You had Barkley, you had Marley, you had Kevin Johnson. That team had enough firepower that they should have been able to do it, but they just shot. As much as Jordan and the Bulls did what Jordan and the Bulls did at that time in that era of the NBA, Phoenix helped them out a hell of a lot by shooting themselves in the foot.
Question. And also another thing too is this is one of the examples of how many times Michael Jordan won a game where he wasn't the primary scorer in the final minutes. Like there've been plenty of games where he got an assist, or in this case where he was just a decoy. I think people kind of, when they use the LeBron and Jordan comparisons, they think of Jordan making all these final shots, but in this case, he won a game where he was literally not the primary go-to guy on a play. And one of the key things too was when that play was designed, the Bulls intentionally took the inbound pass in the back court to kind of set that play up, because Jordan was obviously going to get all the focus of the Suns' defense, but he passed to Scottie Pippen, and Pippen was able to kind of drive into the lane to kind of collapse the defense. And like I said, Horace Grant with the heads up to find a wide open John Paxson, who, by the way, was coming off the bench in this season. B.J. Armstrong was actually the starting point guard at this point. So yeah, like I said, it's a key moment and a clutch shot. But it's also an example of how Michael Jordan, for goodness sakes, won games when he didn't have to take the last shot. He actually set someone else up to do that. And I always said one of the most overlooked aspects of Michael Jordan as far as a basketball player was his high IQ and his willingness, at least later on, to trust his teammates.
Mm-hmm. It was a minor trust, but he got that trust back. So, Jay, your honorable mention.
My honorable mention, Heat Mavs, 2006 NBA Finals Game 3, June 13th of that year. Miami 98, Dallas 96. Think about where this series was coming into this game. Dallas had a 2-0 lead, and both wins were by double digits, and it was only getting worse for Miami. The Heat were staring at an 0-3 hole after blowing a 9-point halftime lead and allowing the Mavs to outscore them 34-16 in the third. And by midway through the fourth quarter, they were down 13. But then it became Dwayne Wade time. He would not go quietly into the night. Scored 15 of the Heat's 30 in the fourth, including 12 in the final 6+ minutes, taking over a game the Heat absolutely had to win. And remember, this was a Heat team that had Shaquille O'Neal on it. Now, despite the fact that Wade played most of that quarter with 5 fouls and he was battling a sore left knee, he finished with 42 points, leading Miami's comeback all the way, single-handedly saving that game and the series for the Heat. Miami would win the next 3 games to clinch their first title. Wade would score 36, 43, 36 in those 3 games, winning Finals MVP. Now, while this game is considered the turning point of the series that set the Heat firmly on their path to the first NBA title, it's the series clincher 7 days later is the one that is an honorable mention for my life. Rabbi knows this story. Anthony, I don't know if you do. That night, June 20th of 2006, Nisa and I went to see Tom Petty play at Madison Square Garden. Awesome concert. Now, Nisa had taped the game, and we had to do everything we could not to look at TV screens in the Garden as we're leaving it, not to look in any bar windows on the way back to her place, not to look at those screens on the cabs, because back then they were scrolling and, ESPN scores, and we got back to her place, we watched the tape, and when it was all over and the Heat had clinched their first title, that woman let loose the loudest silent scream you will ever not hear. 2006 was ironically the year I got Nisa into the NBA. The fact that her hometown team won the championship that year made it easy, especially when you have games like Game 3 and Game 6. My honorable mention. I know that I technically got 2 in there, but, it was that year. I couldn't not.
Ironically, NBA TV showed Game 6 this morning. I was watching it while I was obviously exercising. I had the game on. And you realize that, and I'm looking at the Mavericks standpoint from this was a big stain on Dirk Nowitzki for a number of years until he won the championship in 2011. You think about this. Right. They had a 2-0 series lead and blew it and lost Game 6 at home. The following year, they won 67 games and they lose to the, we believe, 8-seeded Golden State Warriors. Still one of the more fun teams in recent memory to watch. But it was a big asterisk on Dirk Nowitzki's career for a very long time. And obviously, not the same Miami Heat team in 2011, but the franchise nonetheless. And Dirk Nowitzki able to kind of right the wrongs of 2006 and win in 2011. Ironically enough, winning Game 6 in Miami, almost identical to how the Miami Heat won Game 6 in Dallas. Also a tidbit is that both these 2 teams played in arenas named after American Airlines. So that's a nice little trivia question to kind of throw out there. But you think about Dwayne Wade in this series and the fact that he pretty much shot more free throws than the Mavericks team combined in some of these games. But that was Dwayne Wade's game. He was aggressive. Mm-hmm. He didn't sit up for outside shots. He wasn't much of a three-point shooter. He was a noted slasher who could finish around the basket. Mm-hmm. And, they had Shaquille O'Neal, but this is clearly Dwayne Wade's team. He was going to be the guy for a long time. And even when you think about those later Miami Heat teams with LeBron James and winning the 2 championships, Dwayne Wade was the guy but he was also the guy to kind of take a step back and let someone else lead the way to those 2 championships. It tells you how much Dwayne Wade has been a fabric to the Miami Heat organization in the last 10, 15 years. And even in the years between, Dwayne Wade single-handedly getting the Miami Heat to a couple of playoff appearances. Like I said, this series, especially Game 3, Dwayne Wade was really it really put Dwayne Wade on a map. But keep in mind, he came in at the same time as LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, future teammate Chris Bosh, and Darko Milicic. We kind of forget about that.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, but Dwayne Wade coming out of Marquette was kind of lost in that 2003 draft shuffle at first. Yeah. And then, like I said, he played very well, get Miami to the playoffs in 2004, 05. He was kind of, they got to the conference finals, lost to the Pistons in 7 games. That was Shaq's first year in Miami. And the following year, they was able to kind of overcome the Pistons in the conference finals, but Dwayne Wade had to kind of take control of that team, because obviously Shaq was kind of getting towards the end of his career. He wasn't in prime Shaq. He wasn't going to carry that franchise. Another key thing, 2 key players to kind of give an honorable mention to, 3 actually. Antoine Walker, Jason Williams, and Alonzo Mourning, who was kind of like cast-offs at that point. Mourning kind of finished up his career after fighting, remember, a kidney illness a few years back, and the bad years with Josie Ness that didn't pan out. Antoine Walker was just kind of like a role player at that point. Jason Williams, far away from the Sacramento Kings days. They played big roles in that Game 6.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Antoine Walker actually outscored Shaquille O'Neal in this series by like a 1/10 of a point. Walker was 13-8 a game. Shaquille O'Neal was 13-7. Wade, an unstoppable 34-7 in this game. Yep. I mean, in this series. Nowitzki actually, in that, I believe it was the second round, almost kind of reversed his own narrative because of the series he had against the Spurs, and another game that could easily be mentioned in their Game 7 of the Western Conference semifinal, Spurs-Mavs. Unbelievable game. Nowitzki didn't really turn himself around until 2011, and that series in that playoffs where he just took him on his back and they beat the big 3 of the Miami Heat. However, I'm going to talk about the controversy of this series, especially games 3, 4, and 5 at home. Yes, Wade got every foul call known to mankind. This is why it's a little tainted for me. And reliable sources like disgraced and former NBA referee Tim Donaghy actually says that he thinks that the Dallas Mavericks were screwed out of an NBA championship in this game, and said that a lot of the refs hated them, especially Ed Rush, the supervisors of officials.
Ooh, Ed T.
Yeah. And there was a lot of series people refs who were kind of shady in this series. Bennett Salvatore, Ed Malloy. But that's kind of one of the things that kind of makes this a little iffy for me.
For you. Maybe for you.
For me. But this is Dwayne Wade's coming. Yeah.
At the same time, Rabbi, Dallas did not help. Look, is it possible that Miami and especially D. Wade got a few extra calls? Sure. Yeah. But when have we not seen at any point during a time in an NBA's final series where a star player probably got a call or 2 or 3
or 7?
Michael Jordan.
Right. Hey, easy there, buddy.
Look, at that point, you know what? Maybe they went a little too far, maybe, but at the same time, Dallas did not help themselves. They were not the same team after that Game 3. That series turned on its head, and Dirk was never the same. That team just did not recover.
No, they didn't. The Mavericks
may have helped Miami a little, but Dallas did not help themselves at all.
No, they didn't. And so the Mavericks were definitely a Midwestern team that would eventually get themselves righted with their ship. One team that didn't is the team in my honorable mention, and that's the Oklahoma City Thunder, and probably their best chance to win an NBA title. Well, they never got to it. Well, they did get to an NBA Finals, but that was the Harden, the Harden-Durant Westbrook combo, but they were way too young in that NBA Finals. Fast forward 4 years later, 2016, they had a 3-1 series lead over the Warriors. They dominated games 3 and 4 at home, made people think. They lose game 5 in Golden State, but here they come back to Oklahoma City. Yeah, this is where it starts. This was a game that was legendary because of the fact that Oklahoma City crowd was ready for something to happen. I thought something was going to happen. I thought it would have been one of the biggest collapses in NBA history for a 73-win Warriors team to not even make the NBA Finals. And we saw them in Anthony's first pick lose in the NBA Finals in Game 7. That doesn't happen if this doesn't happen. So this is known by many people as the Klay Thompson game. If you remember, Steph Curry during the regular season in a Saturday night NBA game scored 46 against the Thunder with a mid-court heave. It was almost a mid-court shot that Curry almost made effortless that gave the Warriors a win over the Thunder. But this game was the Klay Thompson show. 41 points. It was a neck and forth game almost the entire way, but 41 points for Klay, 11 from 18 from 3, and that fourth quarter was legendary. 19 points, 5 3-pointers, and we were talking about how Game 7 was not the Splash Brothers' best moment. This might have been the Splash Brothers' best moment. Steph Curry, 31 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists. Mm-hmm. This was a two-man show, and the reason why the Warriors won this series was this game. You bring it back to a Game 7 at Oracle, and most likely that team is going to win, and that's exactly why the Warriors made the NBA Finals. But I do also want to talk about Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. They had games. Durant, 10 of 31, did score 29. Westbrook, 10 of 27, scored 28. But the historical significance of this game is huge. If the Thunder win this game, they face the Cavaliers in the NBA Finals. We don't have one of the greatest games ever, Anthony's Game 7. Kevin Durant probably stays in Oklahoma City and tries to win one if they win a title that year or if they lose in the NBA Finals. That might have been enough. But then Westbrook's history is changed because Westbrook really hasn't been on a really good team since then. And maybe this Rockets team, who we'll see in Orlando, will be that team. But all the things just come to play in this game. And is one of the reasons why that Oklahoma City Thunder team from 2012 to 2016 was just always this close and never got over the hump. This game was the example.
Yeah, Rabbi, you kind of nailed it right there. And I was just like revisiting the box score. I mean, you talk about, it was only a 5, it was a 7-point game, but you talk about Durant and Westbrook. Every member of that starting 5 had a negative plus minus, with Westbrook and Durant were combined a minus 17. You talk about the flip side of that, the Golden State Warriors, their big 3 were a combined plus 34. I mean, Curry was plus 12.
Plus 44, by the way.
Thompson was plus 16. Draymond was plus 16. I mean, Draymond, under the radar, but a very Draymond game. 12 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, and a block, in 42 minutes.
He's the Dennis Rodman of this Warriors team.
Yeah, and it's just amazing to me, to watch this Warriors team. And everybody always talks, Steph gets all the highlights. He gets all the press for, the right reasons. Draymond gets the press for all the wrong reasons. And, Klay is just there. And, he for the most part, he flies under the radar, but he's probably one of the best shooters in the NBA. And Golden State is not Golden State without him. And every now and then he busts out for a game like this, and you go, oh, yeah, right. Klay Thompson can be the alpha on this team on any given night just as much as Steph Curry can. I mean, talk about this. As much as, Clay is – there's a reason they're called the Splash Brothers, but I don't think on a day – except maybe in Golden State, overall, I don't think Clay gets the night in and night out respect that he deserves, not just for his ability to drop buckets, in huge spurts like he's shown he can do, but this guy takes on the opposition's number one perimeter scorer every night, and that's a thankless job, especially in the Western Conference. So to do that, as well as being able to drop 40 whenever, he feels like it, Clay doesn't get the respect he deserves, but this game, yeah.
Okay, wait a minute, Anthony. Before you go, Jay, did you look at the whole box score for a second?
I did.
Okay, so Anthony only gets his question. He mentioned that all of the Thunder were minuses in this game, but there was one Thunder player who came off the bench in 11 minutes and had a plus 15. Can you guess? And there's a reason why I'm asking this.
Okay.
Yes, Anthony.
No, he might. He might. It's one of his favorite people.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Just one second. Something tip of my tongue. Jeez. This one's tip of my tongue. I can't. I got his face in my mind, but I can't.
No, you don't. I don't know if you may have his face. You ready?
Okay. I'm okay. I'm gonna ask a clue. Did he date a WWE superstar?
Yes.
At one point.
Yep.
All right. So at least I know I'm getting there.
Okay.
Was he a 24/7 champion? At
yes.
one point. All right. So.
Okay, you're out of time. It's Enos Kanter, obviously, who was a very big person off the bench. And one other thing of this game, by the way, before we go to Anthony, Dion Waiters played 36 minutes in this game with 3 points. How is that possible? All right, go ahead.
All right, two things. Number one, Charles Barkley has said this perfectly during the TNT telecast. Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook was kind of getting involved in playing what they call hero ball and kind of trying to go out and win the games on their own. And it's not the fact that they shot 10 for 32 or whatnot. It was the kind of shots they were settling on. Like, it looked like they were really kind of trying to take the game on themselves and wasn't doing a good job of it. Whereas when you saw when they went up 3-1, they were moving the ball and they were kind of getting their teammates involved, and then they kind of fell into this isolation game, and it kind of played right into the Golden State Warriors' advantage, who didn't have a way to solve it after the first 4 games. Get back to Klay Thompson. You think about this is a man who has scored 40 points in a game and only is dribbled had 7 dribbles at one point. But this talk about how good Klay Thompson is, and when he gets going, he is virtually unstoppable as far as shooting threes. I mean, you think about Steph Curry, for as good as he is as far as scoring, he's a very willing passer as a point guard. And the fact that he's literally gets so much attention, you forget Klay Thompson can knock down threes at the same time. But also, Klay Thompson is one of the better two-way players in the league. He doesn't get enough credit for his defense. Nope. Think about Draymond Green. Having a Draymond Green-esque game. Andre Iguodala as well, coming off the bench. That 2016 Golden State Warriors team literally led by the model of strength in numbers, whereas the entire team found a way to chip in at some point. And Klay Thompson on this night, just going off the way he did, kind of saved this season. And when the game is over, you kind of felt like the series was over. You didn't feel like Oklahoma City had a chance to go in and win a Game 7 on the road. I mean, they had won Game 2 convincingly, but that was early on in the series. And, we all saw that they really didn't play. I don't know if they even had a lead in that Game 7, that series. It felt like Golden State led majority of the way in that game.
Yeah, I think they did go wire to wire in that game. Before we leave tonight, I just want to mention some of Klay Thompson's best performances. Remember when he scored 37 in a quarter? Remember the fact that he scored 50 points in 3 games without playing a single minute in a fourth quarter. the reason why the Warriors are champs, did the 3 of 4, was because they didn't make a trade in 2015 for Kevin Love. They left Clay. Jerry West said no, and this is why the Warriors are the Warriors that we ended up seeing from 2015 to 2019.
Yep.
The irony in that is Kevin Love going to Cleveland and helping them playing a part in denying the Warriors in 2016. There's a lot of irony to it. But yeah, you think about it, Klay Thompson. I mean, as good as he is, he's pretty anonymous. You keep in mind he was here in New York for a game against the Brooklyn Nets, and a reporter interviewed him, and they literally didn't know who he was. Like, it was so funny. They just put Klay Thompson at the bottom of the screen and said Klay Thompson, basketball player. Which was the hilarious thing was like, yeah, we know he's it was like a Fox News telecast. It was like, you don't know who the guy is. He's only like the only 6'5" guy walking around Midtown Manhattan when you interview him. But that just kind of tells you that Klay Thompson sometimes get lost in the shuffle of the greatness that is Steph Curry, and the sometimes baffling behavior of Draymond Green. Klay Thompson's kind of like that glue guy that's so good offensively, but also he can shut down a opposing player on the defensive end too because he's just versatility.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not the Splash Brother person. It's the Splash Brothers for a reason. Yep. All right, guys, we have made it through the jungle of the NBA's best postseason games, and pretty soon we'll actually have some NBA stuff to talk about real life in July. So that does it for tonight's show. For Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait, I'm Stephen Rabinowitz. Remember, we are on live every Thursday night at 9 o'clock on youtube.com/onthesportslines, or a little after 9, whatever. Anyway, you can see this. I'm sorry, that's on facebook.com/onthesportslines. You can see this show the very next day on youtube.com/onthesportslines. And Twitter?
At ONTA Sportslines, where the link to the show that's going up on YouTube can be found.
You do that so well, sir. All right. Topic for next week, gentlemen.
Lay it on me.
Best athletes from the non-pro big four sports of all time.
Ooh,
that's golf. That's boxing. That's auto racing.
Olympic sports?
We'll talk about that. It can be Olympic sports also, but get your thinking caps on, gentlemen. This is the sports that are playing right now. My name is Stephen Rabinowitz. Thank you for watching this edition of On the Sports Lines. Good night.
Night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.